Okay, we're gonna get rolling. All right. So if you want to wait here, we can run you through. What's that? If you want to wait here, you can run through and run back and get the run. So, all right, folks, we're a few minutes past getting started, just waiting to get some people in. And so honestly, if you do see me take out the hearing aids, I swear I can still hear you. They are brand new as of about 3 hours ago, so you guys are all already incredibly loud. So we'll see how this all rolls. So don't feel bad if I just can't take it anymore, or else I start tapping and try to get it turned down a little bit. But it's a bit strange. I don't know, for those of you that have had hearing aids before, it's like, man, there's like carpet in here and I can hear it. So we'll see how it goes through. My wife is more excited than me, for sure, that I have them. So with that, just like church, front pews open. front pews open. It's just like church. Yeah. So anyway, folks, I want to thank you for coming in. We did offer up this opportunity if we had some interest. Brad helped certainly generate some of that. Aaron Flint this morning jumped on with him too, just to make sure we got that heard, plus the news releases that went out. So it's really good to have you folks in here. So the reason why we're having these meetings, and this is the fourth one, Matt will get through that schedule here in just a minute, is for the proposed season setting changes that we have going on. So if we start to get off of that topic, I'm going to say we're going to hold that till the end, and then we're going to grab that stuff at the end and work on it that way. So, you know, he's going to go through also, Matt, with the information on how to get those comments in to make sure. So coming here is step one, getting it on paper, online, or the other stuff, and we're going to reiterate it. That's your step that you need to make. Might not be the last step either, but that's the next step. So with that, I am Mike Ruggles. I'm the regional supervisor. I've been here for about 12 years, but with the department for going on close to 28 years. I did about half of that career up at Fort Peck out of Glasgow. And I was the fish manager and fish biologist here for everything except since April. So some new changes. I'm going to let Matt introduce himself before we send him off to the controls here. And then I'll have the two biologists in the room introduce themselves, and then I'll turn it over to Bob for the online folks.
Thanks, you guys. I'm Matt Ladd. I'm the Region 5 Wildlife Program Manager.
Oh, use a big voice, sir.
Yeah.
Step in front, you're gonna whisper.
He's the second reason why I had to get hearing aids.
Well, no, but the rest you can hear him all right? We're good. All right, speak loud.
So again, Matt Ladd, Region 5 Wildlife Manager. I've been in this position since August. So fairly new to the position, not new to the region. Was in enforcement here in the region for about 15 and a half years prior to that. Came down to Region 5 from Northeast Montana, and haven't left since. So been here pretty much my whole career with the department. So I'll be going through the presentation. I won't be in this room. I'll be in another room just so the computer doesn't get feedback and kind of cause some audio problems. But after we kind of get through the presentation, I'll come back in. I'm not leaving these guys here by themselves. So we will get through it, and I'll come back in and talk to you guys and help to answer questions. Ashley Taylor is our wildlife biologist she actually lives out of Judas Gap, but basically the north western portion of the region. Megan O'Reilly is also here tonight. Megan is our wildlife biologist out of Region 5 in the Billings area, but she also handles a lot of non-game stuff. And I will cover, there's two other biologists that aren't here with us tonight, but they are on the Zoom call, and they'll be here to help answer questions via Zoom as well. And I'll talk about them in just a little bit. But
yeah, and Bob will do the introductions as you're shuffling too.
Yep. So I'll get through those introductions, but I'm gonna go into the other room and kind of get this process started for you guys.
Yep. So while he's out, Bob, you want to go ahead and do an introduction, and there isn't a pop-up, so just let us know who's on, and then have them introduce themselves, and so they know that we're here. And by the way, folks, you're going to see we're going to start recording here in a minute too if we haven't already. So it's all yours,
Very
Bob.
good. Thank you, Mike. Welcome to the Region 5 headquarters, folks. I want to remind you that we are recording this session. And so we'll have that available for the commissioners or whoever would like to see it after this is over with. In addition to the folks that are in the room there with you tonight, there's some of the folks that are on Zoom. some of our biologists, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Justin, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'm Justin Paw. I'm the area wildlife biologist out of Big Timber. I've been here about 15 years now.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, Sean Stewart, the area wildlife biologist out of Red Lodge, the Beartooth Mountains. Been here crowding 50 years.
And
That's
we may have others from the department join us later in the session, and if so, then they may have an opportunity toward the end to introduce themselves. There you go, Mike.
all right. Sounds good. Matt, if you're ready to go, I'll turn it over to you. And then if there's a particular slide that looks like we want to, so our initial idea is to go through the presentation. So we played it two different ways since we've done it. So one was to go through the presentation and then go from there. But if I see there's a bunch of unrest in the room and maybe we want to stop on a slide, we'll just stop and I'll tell Matt, hey, we're going to hold up. We want to chat about this one. So we'll roll through it that way. So I'll read the room, and if you guys are like, or there, we'll slow Matt down and go from there. So Matt, it's all yours. I'm going to shut the microphone off in here and we'll go from there.
Okay, guys, I hope you can hear me good. So yeah, thanks again for coming tonight. We'll get going with this process and kind of tell you how this started and get through these new proposals and move forward here. So again, we already introduced ourselves, but this slide here kind of just shows you the areas that Ashley and Justin and Megan and Sean cover for Region 5. These are the biological areas they cover. And then, as I mentioned earlier, each of the biologists do have their specialties. Ashley, for example, does some specialty stuff with the elk, the upland game birds, and the fur bearers. And again, Megan does some non-game stuff outside of her game responsibilities as well. Justin Paw does some deer and antelope specialty stuff, and Sean does some moose, sheep, goat, and lion and bear stuff as well. That's not to say that all of these biologists don't contribute to each one of those, but those are their specialties. So how did this process get started? So initially we started this process, and some of it was for regulation simplification, and then also for season setting, the tentatives. We do that every 2 years. So here's kind of where we're at in the process. We were, given the assignment to simplify regulations as much as we could and stay in the biological realm. And we kind of did a scoping process on that early this fall, and we provided some comments to the director's or some proposals to the director's office and commission. The commission adopted some of those proposals to move forward and added some as well. We've had, and that was done in mid-December. And since then, there's been a public comment period from mid-December that'll extend through January 21st at 5 o'clock. So that is the official comment period that folks like you will have to comment on these proposals. So we had a December 28th public virtual meeting. That one we covered, elk was the focus for that. The next night, we had a meeting on December 29th, and that one covered deer, antelope, bear, lion, etc. Then on January 6th, we had a citizens advisory committee meeting, and this was also a public information meeting as well, with a CAC portion and panel discussion within that. And at that meeting, we gave an overview of all the regulation proposals and tentative proposal changes. And now we're at January 13th, and this is our final public meeting before the end of the comment period. So again, thanks for coming, and we'll proceed through. So as you guys, the important thing to remember here is in these meetings, This isn't the place where you get your official comments documented and heard. So the best way, and we can't emphasize it enough, is to comment online. And there's a couple of different ways to comment online, and I'll go through that. You can go to our website, and I'm going to go through that and show you how to comment there. That process is one of the better ways to comment because it organizes the comments for the commission and puts them into categories to where they can view them, and they can search those a little bit better and kind of decipher through to see what comments are being made on what topics. Another way is you can actually email your comments into Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks at this email address. Don't worry if you aren't able to write that down in time. I'll show you where you can find that email address again. Or the other option is to go ahead and mail your comments into Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And that is the address for the Helena office. So if you need that address, it's on it's in any of our regulations, and we can get that to you off the website as well.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to pitch the comment card here too for a second.
Okay.
Okay, so we do have comment cards here. If we need to print some more, we can. They're a little heavier stock. So if you don't like all that computer stuff, it's on the back. Just fold it down. You can take it home, write out your comments, add more stuff to it, whatever you need to do, or you can leave it here with us at the end of the day and we'll get them packed up and send them up. So that address is on the back. All that stuff is here. And again, I'll just pitch back through why it's important, that Survey Monkey piece. If you're online and doing that stuff, it organizes it. So those particular commissioners can go down and look at those topics, those districts pretty quickly. When they get mailed like this, they're looking at these, but if they start out something that doesn't grab their attention, it's less likely they're going to get through and do all that kind of stuff. I hope that they're getting through all of them. They're getting a lot. They're getting a lot of phone calls. So having that come in that organized way is the way that they have been drilling through, looking for where are the real issues, what do we really need to work on, what do we need to think about change. And some of these comment cards are going to be coming in late. So my understanding, one of the questions that came up is, can people see those comments? So it's easy on the Survey Monkey to package that up. It's less easy to do that with the emails because they'll have to do some redacting and stuff, but that will be part of that commission package that everybody can pull offline with all the other information before they go there. So it is a tight line. And then we extended the comment period up to the 21st instead of originally it was going to close tomorrow. So makes that kind of tight to pull that stuff together. But certainly this stuff will get looked at, just might not get looked at in the same way or in the same order as they're trying to organize their thoughts. So anyway, it's all yours, Matt. Go for the demo.
Okay. So a little bit earlier, I talked about showing you guys through the website, and that's what we're going to do now. So this is the homepage for Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks website. So this is the homepage address. If you guys Googled Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, probably one of the first things that would pop up, and one of the search engines that you guys use would be an icon to go ahead, and that's going to get you to this website. As you guys scroll down on here, you'll see these buttons just shortly below the picture up top. The number one button you want to look for season setting is this one right here. You go ahead and you click on that, and then you can scroll down. And again, this is where you can find that email address that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So if you haven't gotten that one or you don't have it written down, you can find it again there, or you could call into our office here. We can give that to you at any time. Again, comments will be taken through January 21st at 5 p.m. I mentioned earlier that we had several meetings before. If you go down to this and you click on this icon here, this will take you to this page. And if you want to hear any of the meetings or review any of the meetings, most of them have been recorded, especially all the online meetings. You can click on any one of these regions and look at those meetings there. I'll click on one and just kind of show you. This one particularly is for Region 5, and you can see that those meetings are labeled, and there's YouTube videos on those meetings that you guys can watch. Okay, moving back. So comment opportunities. elk obviously is one of the hot topics. So this would be the tab that you would want to click on to comment on elk. This one is for statewide proposals. I'll just kind of show you one of these real quick and what that looks like. So for example, you want to comment on elk, it's going to load a map with the different hunting districts that are proposed on that map. You can continue to scroll down below that. You have a statewide master list. These are all PDF documents that you guys can click on and pull up. Statewide deer master list also falls under that one, that icon. And for example, if you want to, again, we're here in Region 5, so I'll just use Region 5 for example. You click on that, and it's going to bring up the proposed hunting districts for Region 5 deer and elk, for example. The depth and the detail of the proposals are in these documents listed here. So this is an overview, you know, that we're going to give you tonight, but you guys can look at the depth and detail in those documents there. Then you keep scrolling down, and here you can, this is all optional. You can put your name, where you live, where you're from if you like, your email address if you like, you don't have to. Also, this is what really helps organize this stuff, is if you guys click on hunting districts, for example, that you want to comment on, that really helps organize that some. So when a commissioner or somebody that's reviewing these comments wants to go in and look at something specifically, that will help them pull those up. You would make your comments in this area right here in the comment box, and then you scroll down and you'll hit done when you're done making your comments. Don't forget to hit done. If you don't, it doesn't save them. Once you hit done, a indicator will pop up on the screen with a check mark. I think it was, if I remember right, and it basically is just indicating to you that your comments were received and accepted. So that's how that process works. Moving forward. Okay, I talked a little bit about the statewide stuff. There was that statewide tab that I mentioned. That's one that you can click on there. Over and beyond some of the proposal stuff, you can find information on season dates, license quota ranges, game damage, management seasons, wildlife health, urban wildlife quota authorization, etc. So there's a lot of topics under that statewide one that you may want to look at as well. Okay, so jumping right into the elk stuff, one of the hot topics and one of the proposals is elk archery only permits. And so we looked at elk archery stuff statewide. The 900-20 elk archery either sex permit has covered the hunting districts and is currently covers the hunting districts listed that you guys can see there. The thought was to unbundle this 900-20 archery permit. Some of that was considered due to crowding. Some of it was just for a biological effort to be a little more prescriptive to certain hunting districts and address some of those issues. Some of it was a little bit for simplification, but we were having some complaints and some concerns and some comment coming in from hunters that weren't drawing the 900-20 permit for one. And then also folks were complaining that it seemed like everybody that had a 920 permit were ending up in just certain locations across the state. So of all those hunting districts that were combined under that, some of those are proposed to go to general license. So all you would need, you wouldn't need an archery permit in those districts anymore, just a general license to hunt them during the archery season. And some are proposed to go to archery bundle, another archery bundle, for example. And just as a note, in Region 5, hunting districts 502, the new proposed 535, and we'll show you what these new proposed districts are. Don't worry about that just yet. And hunting district 555, which is newly proposed, and hunting district 590, those were all proposed. Those are all being proposed to go to one archery permit, and that's going to be a 595-21 is what's proposed. So again, these are just proposals. These haven't been adopted by the commissioner or the commission group yet. So just keep that in mind. Also, a portion of 701, which has been tied to 590 for many years, would fall into that archery permit as well. As you can see here, some of the other hunting districts, 575 and 580, which were covered under the 900, are proposed to go to general license for those areas. So moving along, also either sex elk permit proposals. So there was a few hunting districts across the state where the commission approved the season structure for those hunting districts, but they wanted to increase the number of either sex firearm or, either sex permits for the general 5-week season by 50%. So for example, here in Region 5, I know this is a little confusing. 411 has been tied to hunting district 530 and 511, which we are proposing to combine those two districts to 535. But for example, that permit that covers those districts would go from having 300 permits in that district, which is the current number, to 450. And as we move down, just specifically to Region 5, Hunting District 590, for example, would have 250 permits, which has 250 permits in the northern portion right now, or the northern part. That would go to 380. And I can speak to this a little bit more specifically. The southern portion of 590 is not over objective for that portion. So only portions that had that were over objective were considered for going to 50%, to increasing by 50%. So that's why this number is 380. There's actually 80 permits in the southern portion, but we're recommending to remove portions in Region 5, and I'll explain that a little bit more. So anyway, the either sex permit is proposed to go to 380 permits. Okay, Antlerless B proposal. So the commission also proposed to add a new statewide unlimited Antlerless B license for elk. That would be valid on private land and elk hunting districts that are more than 200% over objective. These licenses would be available over the counter and would be valid during any open elk season, to include the late season that goes through February 15th. For 2022, the hunting districts these licenses would be available for are as follows below, and specifically to Region 5, you can see this 535 up here. That one is, again, the combination of hunting district 511 and 530. That's a newly proposed district. And then 515 is actually a newly proposed district too, and that is a combination of 500 and 570 being put together, and then 575 and 580 and 590 as well. Okay, so another commission proposal that is out for comment right now, and they want comment on is this particular proposal is, for example, if someone draws an elk archery permit, say, for example, just 410. So if someone drew a elk archery permit for 410, that would be the only hunting district that they could hunt elk in, or antlered elk in, during that season time. So if it's just an archery permit, it would be only for that archery season that they would be limited to hunting antlered elk in that area. If, for example, they wanted to hunt antlerless elk, it doesn't restrict them just to hunting antlerless elk in that area. It's only antlered elk. So for example, if you had a either sex permit for the general season, in other words, a rifle permit for easy terms, the rifle permits are valid for both the archery season and the rifle season. So you would be restricted to hunting antlerless elk only in that hunting district that permit, or only the hunting district or districts that permit is valid for in that, for that particular year. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we were tasked with simplifying regulations. This has been a department goal for a number of years, and the director wanted to get this ball rolling and make this happen. So we were again, tasked with simplification of regulations but within that, we needed to stay obviously in the biological realm of what was important for the populations and the species within the region. So in doing that, we did combine some hunting districts, and we wanted to limit or reduce the number of license permit types. That's what an LPT is. So you'll see that acronym used a few times throughout the presentation, but we wanted to basically reduce the number of license permit types, reduce the number of hunting districts that we had, and combine, similar habitat types in some cases. So moving forward, right now, Region 5, for example, has 12 deer and elk hunting districts. So the proposals that we put forth would change so that Region 5 has 10 deer elk hunting districts, for example. And within that, we combined some were left the same. Some are new hunting districts, but actually could be maybe an old portion, for example, and I can kind of explain that as we move through. Region 5 has 62 license permit types for elk and 37 license permit types for deer at the present. So the proposals that we put forward would reduce the number of license permit types for elk to 32, for example, and for deer, those would be reduced to 29 license permit types. In saying that, the license permit types, even though they're reduced, they are still providing the same opportunities, and we'll talk to that a little bit more. So here's a representation of the hunting districts that we currently have with the portions that we currently have. Up here in the upper right-hand part of Region 5, this is actually in Region 7. This is a portion that is in Hunting District 701 that I mentioned a little bit earlier has been tied to Hunting District 590 for elk permitting for a number of years. That portion will actually remain, and we can discuss that a little bit more. During the simplification process, we were given direction to try to eliminate portions of districts and in an effort to simplify regulations so people weren't confused by portions of districts and boundaries within hunting districts. So this portion of 590 down here to the south would be removed. This portion of 580 to the south, which is under permit, would be removed. This portion of the current hunting district 560, this is the portion south of Falls Creek. That portion we actually proposed to change to a hunting district of its own. This portion, the south and east portion, or south and east portion, south and east of the West Fork of Rock Creek in Hunting District 520 is, we have a little bit of a change with that one as well, and I'll explain that here in a second. So these are the proposed hunting districts. And here are the proposed, here's another, whoop, I missed. Here's another map of the proposed hunting districts. As you can see up top there, Hunting District 535, we proposed to combine Hunting District 511 and 530. Hunting District 540 remain the same. Hunting District 580 remain the same. Proposed Hunting District 515 there in the middle, that's to combine 570 and 500. 590 would remain the same with the portion removed, as I mentioned earlier. Over to the left, 560 and 520 would actually be combined together in the new Hunting District 525. I mentioned that 565 in the lower west part of the region is actually the old portion of Hunting District 560, and that one would become actually a new hunting district. And then again in 520, our current 520, that portion that was south and east of the West Fork of Rock Creek was divided up a little bit. Part of it would go with new Hunting District 525, and the other part of it along the Beartooth Highway and then east would be combined with Hunting District 510 to become Hunting District 555. hunting district 502 would remain the same. 575 would remain the same as well. So earlier we talked a little bit about the 920 either sex archery permit. This is the area, this represents the area that permit currently covers in Region 5. So if you're hunting any of those areas that are in that shaded part there, that would fall under that 920 archery permit. So what we're proposing is some of those areas that were under the old, or were, if we remove that 920, some of those areas would actually go to general either sex elk hunting on a general license. And then as you can see, the blue shaded portion on the east side of the region, those districts would fall under that 595-21 elk archery permit that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And just for your quick reference, that would include the new proposed 535, hunting district 590, hunting district 502, and the new hunting district 555. Also, it would include that portion of 701 that has traditionally
Hey,
been
Matt.
tied. Yep.
Matt?
Yep.
Got one quick, I think.
Sorry about this. So to be clear, the current situation with mule deer permits down 510, essentially the prior mountain range, you were isolated to hunt buck mule deer in that region.
We're not quite to the deer
But
piece yet.
I'm using that as an example. I apologize.
Okay,
So
yep.
this is limiting you with your general elk license. The only antlered elk that you could harvest would be within this district during the archery season. Is that correct?
Matt? I think. so.
Yeah, so if you drew the 595-21 permit, you could hunt 502, 535, 555, 590, and that portion of 701 for antlered elk. It doesn't restrict you to antlerless elk. So that would be the only, those districts that fall under that permit would be the only districts you could hunt antlered elk in. If that proposal from the commission goes through. That
So
is
what he's saying
separate.
is that this one isn't tied to that other, if you pick it and it's bull, that's where you hunt. So they're two separate. So if that one gets pulled in, then that's the way this is. If that one doesn't, then you could do this in other general elk areas.
Oh,
So they're not linked, but influence each other. So,
Yeah, they
Does that help?
influence each other, but they're two separate proposals. So
just a quick follow-up.
Yep.
If that one goes through, are you not allowed to use your general license for antler bull during rifle season?
In general hunting areas, you can, but not in the permitted areas. That's not different. So I'm wondering if I'm understanding your question.
No, what he's asking, if you drew that archery permit, could you then
Oh,
find
yep.
general license area in the rifle season, if that got adopted? That's. And so that, well, that's what the proposal is. So if you got the archery permit and that other proposal goes through where if you draw it, that's where you're limited to during that time frame. So if you draw an archery permit, that's where you can only hunt antlered bulls during the
During
archery
archery.
season. It does not limit you to the rifle season. If you draw, for example, the 41120, which is valid in archery and general, then that's where you're hunting for archery and general for antlered bulls.
Yeah, so if you have archery,
Limit-
you're stuck there. If you have rifle, you're stuck there. On the other ones, you can move around. If you have a permit for a bull, either archery or rifle, you're in that permit area is your only option. And then you can go the other places after that in another gear or equipment. So you drew this one and it's archery. You can't go out and archery hunt in the general one. But you could go to the general one in rifle season and hunt over there.
Okay, that was.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what's the rationale behind making what used to be part of the 900 area a general license now for either sex versus the portion right next to it being a permit area?
Yep, so I'll take a stab at it, Matt, but, and Ashley and Megan, if you want to fix me here, we'll do it. But the biggest thing that happened here is this area is influenced by the elk management plan and says that we're going to manage for older age bulls in the different size class. This area was not. So when we look at the number of elk that are there, we could go to general, biologically not have an impact on that. There may be some other ramifications of that, but biologically it could sustain that general license. Over here, because of the management plan, that's been being tweaked with and played with. So the one thing we made different from the scoping is we actually had two. And we were splitting it between Highway 12, so the Bulls and the Snowies, and then the south stuff. And that got a lot of comments, as well as the 701 portion that got yanked. So the 701 portion came back in and we combined those two archery areas to make it a bigger archery area.
So was the general area just not in the management plan to begin with?
No, it's in there. It just doesn't have the same age structure statements in
I
there.
know, like, in what used to be 500, the management plan was for 60 elk with 10 bulls. I mean, that's a rather large area. That's not very many elk. In the area right next to it's, was it 100 with 20 bulls? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yep. So those are good comments to get in there and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I'm at. So this is where we were saying, if you pitch that to us, we can hear it and we can talk about it. And we could say, you know, we heard something that made sense and maybe get it through. We're probably going to mix up half your message that you were hoping we were getting through.
I'm just
Yep.
making sure I get this.
Yep. Yep. So that's what we're here for tonight. So yeah, so then get that comment in and then they can start weighing that. Cause we have heard a lot about, you know, this one going to general, what's the deal?
Yeah,
And where we
I mean,
at?
That's where I hunt mainly.
Yep.
Would be 515, 575.
Yep.
I mean, I've spent a lot of time in those areas. It's gonna make a huge impact.
Yep. No, and we've heard a fair amount of that. So we've been batting that around some already. So getting more comments in there will help kind of gel what makes sense. If you have some other ideas, you know, staying the same or something different in there. So part of this is there's a perception that there's not that many elk in there. There's a lot of elk in there. So through the survey stuff. So we've heard that, yeah, there just aren't very many and there's not that many bulls and it's pretty high. I don't know if you remember the numbers, but because it's.
Yeah, I think we fly 500 and 570 biennially, so this winter we'll fly it again, and trying to remember who asked the question there. And so the last survey we did, we were at about 450 elk in 500. I don't know the 570 number off the top of my head. So quite a few elk, and the bull to cow ratio is pretty high. There's a lot of bulls in there. So there's
What's the budget?
the elk plan for 500 is 60 total elk and 10 bulls.
Yeah, I mean, if there was that big
And
an
there's-
issue with. the
There's
number
no,
of bulls,
so the ones in the blue, in the management plan, there's a specific management goal to manage for older age class bulls. That's not in 500 and 570.
Quick question, in the gray area there, well, actually both of them, but especially the one gray with they're proposing to make a general season out of it. Isn't there quite a bit of block management in that area?
Yeah.
Wouldn't there be a kind of a decline of block management if they make this a general season where people would be more apt to want to lease that ground out rather than put it into block management?
So
Because
those are
if
good
everybody's
comments to
guaranteed
get
a
out.
license, I would think that there would be quite a rush on,
closing public ground up.
well, it's not public, it's privately owned.
Right, I agree.
But
They'll lease it up. They'll lease it up.
that's what my main concern about that.
Yep. And so when we're
To me,
visiting.
I would think that would be huge.
Yep. So that's certainly a possibility. We've also heard the other side that some people just don't ever want to lease up. They just don't believe in that. But there are some that are a little worried about the number of people that to start coming
Yeah,
to
they
them
let, yeah.
in the other way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and who's the ranch on the blue side that's got their voice in this?
On the blue side, who's
Wilkes Brothers?
actually, we haven't heard much from, at least on our level. Yeah, we're not there. So
The only other
They want the
option,
bulls.
the only other option that I could see that makes sense in that general elk area to try to find the happy medium is just to increase the special permits for either sex tags.
Yeah, so
Yep.
they gotta draw.
Then at least there's a limit to the volume of people that are gonna go on it.
I agree.
Yep. Yep, and so that's a good one to put in there, and then based on the numbers, that would be like in the master list and the quota list, you know, to kick in, this is what we think it's at. You know, so the request went out to the biologist, what's sustainable? So if this elk herd got down closer to the management levels, the next time you see that, it would go down to a limited, because we're gonna manage, it's all these areas that have all these extra elk, that once that comes back down, if we can get it there, however that happens, then you start to see regulations that are pretty simple. You got a permit here, your cow, your bull, and you got a couple
Well,
deer
the
choices.
reason, and I'm sure there's other people that feel the same way. born and raised, been hunting all my life. Been involved with fish and game issues most of my life. The problem with, not that I wouldn't mind a general tag, okay? But when you look at the problems with opening up an area of limited herd to open general tags, is it's an influx of hunters. There will be multiple numbers more than it's ever seen. That always creates problems with landowners. They get tired of being bugged. It increases the opportunity of the bad hunters to cause more damage. And I just think that if it's possible, I'd rather see special permit drawings and just increase them. If you have to increase them to 500, you're still limiting. So there's not 1,000, 1,500, 2,500 people rush into that area opening day.
Yep.
That's
No,
the only place they can go.
yeah, we definitely hear that. And, you know, that's certainly discussions that we've been having too.
Oh, yeah.
So there's room for these to change. So that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, I got one other question. What's the rationing behind only being limited to that area with that archery tag you're talking about? If you draw the 920 tag, you could only hunt elk, antlered elk in that area. What's the reasoning behind that? Because with the thing I just brought up about the land getting leased up and less block management, you're gonna have less opportunity to hunt there. And in archery, I mean, why couldn't you go to Western Montana and hunt? I don't understand how that's gonna benefit, I guess they're trying to reduce the elk numbers there, which I would think would be more apt to make sense to do it with cows rather than bulls.
Yep. So part of that is there's frustration with some of the folks that are essentially local to a lot of these areas that they put in and they can't draw. And so one of the things we have done here is we are increasing the number that would be available to some extent.
Is that the main?
But what happens then is, so somebody from another area, typically that's blamed on Kalispell and Libby, they draw that tag and then they never show up. They just don't come out, and because they got a nice bull in their backyard and we didn't have to do it. Well, it's perceived that opportunity was then lost to me or you or whoever's living in Region 5 and couldn't do it, or Region 6 or Region 7. So that's where that question is coming out. You know, we hear it all the time. You know, why don't you make them, if they want that dang tag, make them come out here and hunt just that area? Well, here's that proposal. So how do people feel about it? And that's really where we're at with that question. So.
Yeah, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll jump in here for a little bit. Guys,
Yep.
all the comments you guys are making, those are good comments. And we can't reemphasize enough that, at this meeting, your comments aren't being recorded here. So in order to make your comments heard, remember that you have to get those comments, documented on that online platform or by emailing them or writing them in. So we value your comments, guys, and I don't want you to have the perception that coming and commenting at the meeting is, that those are getting your comments to the commissioners, because they're not. So make sure all these comments you guys are making are good. Just make sure you get those comments documented into the commission through the platform we talked about.
Yep. So these will be available. So if somebody wants to look at this later and kind of rehash through it and think about it, it'll be online. The commissioners can certainly look at it. It's just that we're not recording or trying to capture everything, because we've messed that up a time or two and we don't want to get caught in that circle. So yep. Yes. Sir.
So I just a little bit different. I've hunted all my life. I've also owned land at 500 that has a sustainable big game population for 30 years. How many permits you put out special, it's access is the issue.
Yep.
And I think that as a landowner, I've been leasing my place for at least 15 years. Having a general license, you put the management in the place of the landowner. So yeah, he's going to decide who he lets hunt based on friendship, whether they're paying, but if people he knows,
yep.
So that he doesn't have to worry about somebody that he doesn't know that all of a sudden has an elk permit and I don't know this guy, should I let him hunt or not? So that land is easy to hunt, and if you don't manage it, my place wouldn't have anything on it if I let everybody hunt. It's just
yep.
too easy to hunt. If you want a hard place that is go to the breaks and go to a hole and there won't be anybody else there, but you're going to work for your elk in some form. You're gonna pay for it with a outfitter, or you're gonna pay for it by yourself going somewhere, or you're gonna pay a landowner something to access their land. But I think the best manager of something that has limited resources is in this case the landowner, because I think, in my opinion, is it would open it up to a lot of landowners that would say, hey, I know these people and I can let them on, but I don't have the time to search through a whole list of people that were lucky enough to draw a full L permit in my area. So
Yep. And
I
so,
think that's an advantage of
yep.
this, because it is an access issue. It's not a numbers issue.
Yep. And so that's part of the hope on this one is if we open up that opportunity for those folks to bring other people on and to do that starts moving the herds around a little bit more so that people that can't get on those have some access. And so that's the strategy that is kind of behind some of this. And so that's what they've been trying to pack through, but it's still the $1 million question. And there's no, until something changes and we play, we won't know what that looks like. So, and even then like Brad and I were talking earlier, throw on drought, throw on a really wet year, no snow, late snow, hot, cold. I mean, there's all kinds of things that affect that the biologists then look at. And so what happened to harvest and where were we at and where did they kind of come from? But was it regulations? Was it environmental? So that's their job. They get to do that all the time. So
Does this proposal have a sunset period on it? I mean, is this for 2, 3 years, 4 years, or is this?
yep. So it is biennial. Every 2 years we make this loop and come out and look at changes, what's happened on the ground. The biologists get the chance. What's different about this one is in September, it was, can you squeeze some of these together? Can you get rid of some license types? And so part of this is getting rid of license types. So you don't have all these different choices, but you still have the same opportunity or maybe a changed opportunity, but still opportunity. But so we would have people go, now, where can I use that 005 or no, I had the 900. No, so I can go to this district, but not this district. So if you're like me and the brother-in-law, we're sitting in the camper going, okay, orange, we can get whitetail there and an elk, but not a bull, purple. So we're trying to get away from that kind of scenario that it makes it a little bit easier to make those choices. Not so many choices, but plenty of opportunities. So that's where the biologist came from. So the next pitch is then came, the director's office has their responsibility to look at those and make changes based on theirs. The commission has that. And certainly there's some pieces in here that are legislative too. So does that kind of help with a long answer of why some of this is being proposed? So, yep. Okay.
One problem I have with that limiting your intersex elk only to that area that you have a permit. Like if I draw a permit and the Missouri breaks and I only have a certain weekend to hunt and it's raining cats and dogs, I can't go up there. So then I can't hunt bull elk anywhere else in the state at that particular time.
That is correct. You just hit my scenario. I like to go up to the breaks and there's been times
Raining,
where.
I want to go to the mountains.
Yep. So,
This particular, and I understand fully, you guys have no,
but we do.
not passing along the information. This is just for my own
Yep.
benefit and education.
Yep.
If you created this isolated season for archery elk harvest in that area, and your only opportunity to harvest the bull is in that specific area, how does that help with population management?
So population management, we have a certain number of licenses that would be available in that area. And we hope that we get close to subscription, full subscription. We have some of these proposals where we don't think everybody's going to put in, so that they would then be that surplus over the counter, late when you would have had to put in for the drawing up front. So that targets, that's part of the challenge of the 900s is like they could just go over this huge giant area. And so how are you focusing over that huge giant area? We want people that want to help with elk in Region 5. This is still a pretty big area. You can go here rather than that 900 piece. So it is kind of focusing, and when there's opportunity and ranches that are open, the phones, people are going to go, people will hear about it. Did the herd move out onto a bunch of state sections? People will hear about it and move up to it. And so that will help focus. Some of this discussion's been like, how does Region 7 do it with these big areas? People will move around and go through. There's some that are like me, go to the same area, and this year we see them and next year you don't. And yeah, I just didn't go poking around anymore. But
Now, can you still hunt a cow in another district with that tag?
yes.
wouldn't it make more sense to restrict the cow hunting to that district rather than the bulls?
So the approach with the cows has been liberalized. You can have 2 tags, you can shoot 3 cows, with the whole bit, so. You can shoot a cow there with another license. So it's not like, that's the real management tool to get to reduction, is getting rid of cows. And we have liberalized those extensively, so.
Yeah, guys, I think if we kind of get through some more of the presentation here, we don't want to be here till midnight, or, we can be, but the one thing I think you'll kind of see, speaking to that question about cow harvest right there, I think we get through some of these other proposals, maybe it'll kind of help you see how we're trying to reduce cow or elk numbers as a whole by harvesting cows. So.
Yep, that's a good idea. I'll shut off the mic here and we'll take a couple more steps, Matt.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
So the commission is also proposing that elk be licensed at 900 over unlimited over the counter for districts that are over 200% over objective. This one is for private land only. So the map you see here is the shaded portion are the areas that would fall under that elk B license. And again, these districts are the ones that are more than 200% over objective for elk numbers. So those districts that you can see on the map there are the ones that one would cover. So 515, 535, 575, 580, and 590. Again, that's an over-the-counter unlimited elk B license that people can buy to go harvest elk on private land. So the proposal that we put together, there's currently a 595-00 Cal B license in Region 5, and this is the area that it currently covers. There's 3,500 of those. We're proposing to remove that one and take that number, that 3,500 that we removed, and add it to our 005-00 Cal B license, which is at 2,500. So that would total 6,000 Cal B licenses for these locations that you can see shaded here. So this is part of the simplification process, is to kind of get rid of a couple of these different cow tag types. And, the commission did add the 900B as a proposal, but what we're looking at doing is trying to get, to simplify this to get to basically one cow tag type was what our idea was here. So this is a current proposal as well, to have this 005-00 Cal B at 6,000. Okay, let's talk about the 411-20 either sex
Hey,
permit.
Matt, can you back up and hit 540 once?
Oh, yeah. I think I'll hit that a little bit later, Mike, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yep,
go for it.
Okay, so 411-20 either sex permit. That one's the one that's been on the books in the Snowies, and it's been valid for hunting district 511, 530, and 411 for several years. So as you remember, I talked about earlier, the commission selected some hunting districts and increased those permits by 50%, or they're proposing to increase those permits by 50%. So this one right now at the moment is there's 300 permits in that, and that would increase to 450. That permit allows hunting in those 3 hunting districts. So moving along, there's also a 411-00 antlerless elk license that's valid in 411, and the newly proposed 535, which again is a combination of 511 and 530 if that goes through. The proposal is to have 1,200 of those licenses available. Those licenses are good during early and late season on private land only, and then archery, and then during archery season, rifle season, and muzzleloader season on both public and private lands. So that's a Cal B license as well. Okay, so if you remember, I showed you where those actual documents are online. this is a little bit of housekeeping. So there was a typo, or I didn't get, I'm guessing it was a typo because this should have read 300. Online, you may see that this reads 150 and it actually should be 450. And again, that's that 411-20 either sex permit. And that's the one that increased from 300 to 450. Also online, there's some muzzle loader season dates that may not be put in there quite yet. For areas that have cow elk hunting, for example, this one would be a proposed 900 00 Cal B license. The November 28th to February 15th overlaps the muzzleloader season. So you're not going to see the muzzleloader season dates on there. However, you could hunt with a muzzleloader season for cow elk there if you wanted to, or archery or rifle for that matter during those season dates. There are some spots though that the muzzleloader season dates aren't in there, and they should be. And those are just some items that are getting cleaned up as we speak. But you might see that in that document that's online. A lot of this
Hey, Matt,
stuff.
got a quick one here.
Yep, go ahead.
When you talked about the 411s and this one here, and you said that it's only open on private land, are you guys pulling out the provision right now that allows hunting on state and BLM in the shoulder season and saying it's private only?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so right now, when the commission made that change this year, at the August meeting, or whenever it was, right now, currently in 530, you're right, those licenses are valid everywhere in 530.
That's right.
National Forest, state, and BLM.
But even if you place it on national forest, the elk are migrating out across the N-bar and they're migrating onto the state and BLM, and that's where people are able to harvest them. And now if you turn it to private only, you're just creating an additional refuge for the Wilks.
Hey, Matt, can you point out some of the other permit types here that kind of spread that out? You know what I'm pitching?
No, I don't know what you mean, Mike.
Yeah, so the 411, so this is one area where we are already.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you mean, Mike. So the 411-00, this permit, this one's the one I talked about for 1200 elk. This one would be valid everywhere. This is that Cal B license that would be valid everywhere. And then it's only valid on private lands during that early season. So that's when this season here is designed more for game damage type issues where you have elk before archery season. So we didn't want, and people have, expressed an interest in not having people hunting elk with rifles, for example, prior to archery season on public land areas. So that one is why that is on private land only just prior to archery season so we're not screwing up somebody's archery hunting area by allowing that or allowing cow elk hunting, for example, on Forest Service, etc. But if you look at this, this license, this 411-00, this 1200 Cal B licenses are valid during the archery season, during the general season, during the muzzleloader season, for example, and also during the late season, valid in all hunting districts. There's no exception, private or public land for that one, for example.
So I just want to step back here and take
I
the.
thought the previous slide said it was
It
private.
did, there was an error on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but I also, just to step back, that this 30,000 foot level, so don't worry about what's on there. Other than, this is a shotgun approach with no choke. So if people are wondering, what are you guys trying to do to get into those herds that are hard to access? And there's a whole bunch of elk. Well, here's some private tags, here's some public tags, here's some not on private land and only on public. It's like, so we are actually having conversations. Can we simplify this now that everybody's pitched in and come up with their ideas and still meet some of those intents of the commission, the director, the biologist? And so if we got back to objective, this would be like 3 lines. So.
Focus on your question earlier. This is ratified for 2 years, though, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And when will the new?
Next hunting season. So this this would come up, the licenses you would be buying through these proposals will be the March sale start.
Yeah, I apologize. The new elk management plan.
Oh,
Will be ratified in 2024.
I don't know about ratification time, but Ashley can speak to that working group a little bit, I think, so.
Yeah, I think that that's when they're looking at having the elk plan is like late 23, early 24.
And then that'll go through a whole round of public comment review, you know, the whole bit. So it won't be like written and then just done. So we'll be out making the laps with those two. So.
Who's coming up with the new management plan? I mean, is that, like, who's involved in the group? Is it appointees from the governor again? Or?
Well, do you remember last year we had that public group that was going on and they kind of designed the guiding principles that we were supposed to write the management, the new elk plan from those guiding principles. And that was like a 3 or 4 public meetings with a group of different people, different stakeholders. And so they did that work. And then internally we took that and we kind of, you know, did some ideas with it. And I think that that's up somewhere above me right now. And then I think recently then the governor or the director, there's doing an elk plan advisory committee council. And I think that's going to be 17 people that will be appointed to further help guide that elk plan rewrite. So it's, yeah, I think, and that's why it's looking at 2023, 2024 to get it done. Because now you're going to have the 17 council person group working on it. You've got the internal plan working on it. And so it'll all be in process still.
So yeah, if it hits the tracks and everything keeps rolling, then maybe, but we'll see. As we all know, elk management is one of those that sometimes takes a little longer to, and since it took so long to get that last management plan has lived so long, there's definitely going to be some fingers in there. So, okay, Matt.
All right, here we go. So, excuse me, moving past elk now, we're going to talk a little bit about deer stuff. So for several years now, Region 5 has had 3 antlerless whitetail bee tags. And this is kind of where the tag distribution has been for the 598, 597, and 599 licenses. As you can see, there's the number of licenses under each one of those numbers. So they were broken out into those 3 areas. What we're proposing is to add all 3 of those licenses together. So we have 4,900 total, and then add 300 of those. So we would be increasing the total number of antlerless whitetail bee licenses to 5,200. So each of those, the 597, 598, and 599 have all been undersubscribed, and they have all been going to surplus over the last few years. So in other words, not as many people are applying for them as we have licenses, and there's a lot left over after the draw each year. So they go on surplus so that you can buy them over the counter. So what we're proposing is to remove those and then take that number that we came up with, the 4,900 plus adding 300 more to equal 5,200 licenses, and making a single whitetail bee license. And that would be the 005-00 license. And that license would be good for the whole region, essentially. Now, with that said, if we still have under subscription, those licenses will go on to surplus, and people can buy up to 7 of those licenses and use those. So that's an opportunity for people to hunt all 3 of those regions of Region 5 with the same license. They're not having to buy a license for over east and over west and then down south, and getting confused about which license goes where, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was part of the simplification process for that, and provides more opportunity for people to harvest whitetail does.
Hey, Matt, I'm just going to quick there's a big sigh in here when you said 7. It's like, you can just feel it. So go to the Region 6 presentation and cruise through until you find the deer piece. So those biologists, they took the time and looked at the licenses. So up there, you've been able to get 7 licenses and do it, or a lot of licenses. So they looked at the number of people that actually go out and get 7 licenses, and it's very, very few. Most do 1, nice big bump at 2, and then after that, it almost falls off. So it's like, you could do 7. I've done 7. I don't know if I do it every year, but it's like, so the fear that this is just gonna turn into 7 people running, it's already undersubscribed. People could be getting a couple already and they're not, so. So if something changed on that and we needed to jump on that, the biologists are gonna see that in harvest and you'll see some change within our quota, so. Yeah.
Are those, when those surplus licenses go over the counter and they be available to non-residents?
Yes, so there is a cap on non-residents, so that people, of all these conversations, and there's still that, the elk and deer combo and then deer, so they're still limited within that. So that's where they come in, but yes, they can get some of those licenses, so, but there's still some limitations on the total number, so. Did I get that right? Okay.
If I could, right here, because that's not what I understand. It's my understanding that if they have to draw a special permit, it's 10%. But if you buy over the counter, it's unlimited, including the non-resident.
So Matt, I know you were digging into this because we've all been kind of doing the same rotation here. You got anything you want to add?
Yeah, so the 8,000 applies to the deer combo license. So that's the limited part. That's for the general deer license. Okay. The surplus licenses, once licenses go to surplus for the Antlerless license, they are non-residents, residents, people can buy those licenses. So the deer combo, that 8,000, that restricts the general deer license. In other words, buck, the licenses that people can buy to harvest bucks.
So
And
the surplus then, Matt, if I understand right, that's where we could see in excess of a 10% if they're still over the counter and available.
that is correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once we go to surplus, any licenses that go to surplus, they can go over 10%. Yeah.
So we're not going into surplus. In elk, if you have to draw a permit for a cow tag, then non-residents can get 10% of those. But if we go to a B1 license and you just buy it over the counter, then the 10% is off. And they can buy their 3, which is prescribed by law.
Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we get back to elk, I'll
Okay.
run that out.
Yep.
I wanna make sure it's right.
Yep.
Yeah, and guys, if there's some you might ask us some questions tonight that we don't necessarily know the answer for. We'll write them down and get your information, and we'll get those figured out for you and get back to you. So don't fret if there's something that we don't know the answer to. And if there are some, I mean, this stuff does get complex and it can be a little difficult to ferret out from time to time.
Yeah, we'll have
Okay.
one more back here, and then we'll
Right.
jump. Did you have something yet?
So with the chronic wasting and the blue tongue that went through the area this fall, we can still get the harvest that we need here, those 3 areas.
So what we are doing right now is we're setting, what our structure is. So if we propose this one license, and right now we're saying 5,200, because that's based on what we have available this hunting season. We don't have to have our changes for what we want to do next season until after we do our spring deer surveys. And so those happen in March, April, after the winter, where we can see, what our fawn recruitment was like, what our buck doe ratios are, what our total numbers are in our trend area. So then we have until, I don't know the date exactly, it changes every year, but we have until about the end of May, end of June, right before the drawing, and then we can adjust that. So with this, we're setting it at 5,200, but we have a range that we can work with. So if we fly this spring and it's really tame, we can cut those back quite a bit.
Yep. So if you want to check the quota, that's under the first statewide tile when you hit comments, and it'll have all the quota ranges for all the different licenses. So that's where that change would happen. So if you want to know what's the most they could do and what's the lowest they could do, that's that table. So. Okay, we're going to jump. Go ahead, Matt.
You bet. Okay, so this is another housekeeping issue in part, but I am going to talk about it a little bit as well. So for hunting district 540, we had 10 antlerless B tags for mule deer in that district. we got some instruction from the director's office, if you don't have at least 50, let's just get rid of those tags. So we didn't necessarily know that we wanted to get rid of those tags initially, so we did go ahead and put the 50 in. Through the scoping process early this fall, through September, for example, we had some landowners and some people from Hunting District 540 that said, hey, we just don't really have that many mule deer anymore. Through Ashley, whose district encompasses Hunting District 540, Ashley said, yeah, we don't really have the game damage issues with mule deer in that area. So the biological considerations and then comments from folks and people that live up there, we decided to remove that 540B license. We just don't have that many mule deer. They're kind of hurting in that area a little bit. So that one is proposed to be removed. Now, if you guys go into the regulations online, again, this is one that didn't get omitted. So that's why I'm showing you this, that it actually has been taken away. So we're proposing not to have a deer B license in Hunting District 540. Okay. While we're on the topic of 540, I was talking earlier about that elk license, the 900B license, and those hunting districts. 540 wasn't included in that hunting district. It's not at the time of the last survey, it wasn't over 200% over objective. So, but Ashley's been flying that, and Hunting District 544 elk is looking like it's going to be more than 200% over objective. And that is one that we have talked to the commission about, or Mike has run that up and talked to Commissioner Siebel about, and the director's office about that. We may need to add that one to that 900B, that proposed 900B license, if that does go through. So just wanted to talk to you guys about that a little bit as well, that might be one that we add. Okay, moving on to Antelope. So
Matt, I'm just gonna make sure that's clear. So if you went to look at the master lister to see that, you wouldn't see that as a recommendation. So we made it at our last CAC and this and tonight. So that's one that somebody might be, I never heard that or saw that. We don't think that it's a major change. It's within that group. So if you guys don't like that or like that idea, the commissioners will know what you're saying in there, because we've been talking with them, and it's one of those where we're still mixing the pot here, trying to keep things simple and going. So, okay, Matt.
Yeah, and here's that map, guys. Again, Mike caught me a little late after I got past this map, and I thought I was going to get to it, but here's that hunting district, and these are the ones that are covered under the 900. But like I said, we're running that up the pole to maybe include 540 as well. So I'll move back down. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Antelope a little bit. Again, under simplification, we put some Antelope districts together, kind of more in the middle of the region. We did change some of those Antelope district numbers. They all end with a 6 now. From an enforcement standpoint, over the years, we've had people get confused. For example, they applied for a hunting, a 590 antelope tag, and they were intending to hunt deer elk district 590. So they got a little confused. They're applying for an antelope license up here, but they're thinking that they're hunting this district over here. And granted, we can't emphasize enough to read the regulations and know where you're at. But the idea with changing some of these numbers and putting a 6 behind all of them is so there's no, to over time eliminate that confusion on districts and numbers that are the same for both deer, elk, and antelope. So we're getting rid of the numbers that are the same. So moving ahead. So there's no quota changes for antelope in Region 5. Now, to speak to that a little bit, every year, antelope are flown and surveyed during July. So each year we print the regulations, so there's a number so people can plan and they can go ahead and apply for their antelope tags. But those quotas actually are not set until the surveys are done. Antelope numbers can change drastically due to winter conditions, due to fawn mortality, etc. So those quotas are actually set in the summer, right before the draw, right before the antelope licenses are drawn. So if you've ever been wondering when the antelope season or when the antelope tags were going to get drawn, and you thought, man, that is really late. That is why that is a late draw, is we're waiting for those antelope quotas to come in. Now, with that said, say a district had a antelope quota of 1,000 and the biologists are up flying around in that district, looks like we have less antelope and we need to lower that. And I say that district goes to 1,000, or from 1,000 down to 800, for example. That 800 will be the quota that's drawn, and then it will also be the quota that's printed in the next year's regulations and then adjusted from there. So one thing to keep in mind here, as I say that no quotas were changed. If we did combine two districts, those district quotas were added together. Okay. So these are some statewide or statewide proposals that we're going to talk about a little bit. This one was a proposal that came in. I'm not completely sure. Mike might know. I think this one came in from the public or a member of the public, and then the commission is looking for comment on it. But what this proposal was to extend sharp-tailed grouse, pheasant, partridge, mountain grouse, essentially all upland game birds other than turkey, to a close date of January 31st instead of January 1st. So this one is out there for people to comment on as well. And the commission wants you guys' comment on that. So that is just basically a season extension from January 1st to January 31st for the hunting of upland game birds.
We got
Matt, that would not include sage grouse.
Right, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does not include sage grouse. That is correct. Yep.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah.
I was gonna comment, I just wanted to ask a biologist, I mean, I know you're hunting, we have long upland bird seasons already. And now you're gonna extend that to January 31st, where we've had serious snow and winter and they're bundled up trying to survive. Is that biologically, sustainable?
Megan or Ashley want that one?
There's just not a lot of research out there on it. So there's kind of some concerns that have been brought up that we've heard in the public comment so far, and that we've seen as people have kind of tried to read up on it, is there's a landowner concern. They've already been allowing hunting, and so there's a landowner tolerance concern there, that they're just done. They don't want another month of people knocking on their doors to hunt. Biologically, you're like for pheasants, you're hunting males, and not that bad, I suppose. But the other concerns are, you're especially like for sage grouse, you're going to be out there, you're going to be disturbing sage grouse when it's winter, and so that's a concern. Like you said, they're trying to survive winter and they're bundled up with things. Another thing that's been brought up is, you're out there bird hunting into January, when that's sometimes where we get our most severe weather. And so then what ungulates are you disturbing on their winter range? A lot of times you see bird hunting in mule deer winter range, and along the rivers, riparian areas where we've got deer and things too. And so, it's something that we're getting comments on. And so we're still looking at that and trying to see where we end up there.
And if you have the time and interest, jumping on to Region 6 and Region 7 recorded ones of these, they had some pretty robust discussions about that too. So
I'll do that. Yeah.
But yeah, we're happy to talk about it, but that's another
Just
resource.
wanted to hear a biologist's perspective on that.
Yep.
before I Just jump in too much.
Yeah, and those are great conversations on both of those too. So
That's one question. Have they ever considered going back to the way they did years ago, where first week was for residents? Has that ever been brought up? I kind of liked that. I thought that was kind of a nice.
Yep. So that hasn't been proposed recently, not that I've heard of or batted around much, but that would be a good one of those comments to, hey, here's something to think about if we're thinking about doing this, then maybe we do that. So, yep. Okay, you're on, Matt.
All right. So another proposal is to adjust the spring turkey season dates from April 10th to May 16th. Or from April 10th to May 16th, which they were, for example, this year, to April 15th to May 31st. So that's just moving that turkey season to a little later date start to avoid some of the nesting and breeding part of the season and help turkeys that way. And then, but it also actually lengthens the turkey season a few days as well. So that's one proposal there. Another part of that and kind of some thought in that was people are traveling around hunting turkeys a lot, and they're trying to match these seasons with other states. So like, for example, Montana isn't getting bombarded because we have a turkey season that's open before everybody else's. So that's kind of that part of that proposal as well, you know, or kind of some of the thought in that proposal. And then, like I said, to move it back and maybe avoid some of the nesting and breeding part as well. Okay. There is a proposal. This one kind of was generated by a sportsman's group in northwestern Montana, and that is to allow the use of air rifles as a legal means to take turkey during the fall season. They have a caliber restriction on there and a speed restriction, or, you know, a speed limitation as well.
I call that velocity when I forget to.
Yeah, the velocity, feet per second. So this one, I think the reason why this one was proposed was Region 1 has a lot of urban turkeys in those areas up there, and that's why this this proposal was kind of put together. Okay, there's no proposals for turkey that are specific for Region 5. These are all statewide. So, okay, moving forward, in Region 5, we had some district changes to match deer and elk districts with mountain lion. So when we went through and proposed that we change some of the deer and elk districts, in other words, put them together, etc., our mountain lion districts match our deer and elk districts. Also within that, we are proposing to change the quota to six males in hunting districts, the proposed hunting districts 525, 555, and 565, and 9 females, excuse me, in those areas. So the reason actually that the number of quota for males is actually being lowered a little bit, and that was in response to try to actually increase the number of older males. And then in the western portions of those districts, or the western portion of those 3 districts, so it'd be 565 and 525 to the west, there's been an interest in actually reducing lion numbers. And that's, so in response to that, we would be increasing or proposing to increase the number of females taken in that district. Hunting district 502, 515, 535, 575, and 590 are, you know, some of those are newly proposed districts. That one will be combined to a total quota of 27. Hunting district 511, which is being proposed to be combined with 535, was a standalone district that had a total of 4 as a mountain lion quota, and that was added to the 23 for the balance of those districts to come up with a total of 27. So overall, those quotas were added together. On a statewide level, there's a statewide mountain lion management unit, statewide mountain lion management units. LMUs is what they're called. Specific LMUs may be managed separately, or a similar approach may be used statewide. And they may be managed under a couple of different options. One is a straight quota system that would close when the quota is met. Or option number 2 is a hybrid system that uses a permit for the early portion of the season and then uses a quota for the remainder of the season if the quota has not been met during the permit season. These, both of these or that particular one, probably applies more to Western Montana mountain lion hunting than it really does out here, but it is a statewide proposal. And then another proposal for mountain lion is up to 40 of the D4 non-resident hound licenses may be issued that are valid during the mountain lion hunting season, with no more than 2 D4 hound licenses issued within the groupings of lion management units used in the prior seasons. So, okay, so this is kind of what the mountain lion map looks like for Region 5. As you can see, the bottom portion, the quotas are being proposed to change to 6 males and 9 females. And I talked a little bit about why that was being proposed. And then that northern unit is much larger, and we just added those together as we changed those districts due to the changes in the deer elk districts. Okay, so legislatively, the legislature added a hound hunting season. This is a legislative change. This is not a department or commission change. This was a legislative change to add a hound hunting season that would start in April 15th, run through May 31st for bear management units around the state. For Region 5, we propose to include Bear Management Unit 580 and a portion of Bear Management Unit 510 east of Highway 310. So within that, it was decided that those 2 bear management units would, or that Bear Management Unit 580 and the portion of 510 would be selected for hound hunting because of grizzly bear distribution within Region 5. And I'll explain that a little bit. Essentially, take for grizzly bears is defined as chase, disturb, or kill a grizzly bear. So, and it's unlawful to take a grizzly bear. So this is in an effort to avoid grizzly bears with hounds disruption and chase by limiting the hound hunting areas to those areas. Additionally, as part of that legislation, we also had to add a hound training season. So the proposal is to add the season from June 1st to June 15 in the same bear management units that I described there. Okay, moving on, there's a statewide proposal to eliminate the requirement that each harvested black bear needs to be physically inspected by a department employee. Successful black bear hunters will be required to submit a premolar from any black bear harvested and provide it to the department office within 10 days, either in person or by mail, postmarked within 10 days. All harvests will be required to be reported, and the reporting line and those numbers that you can see there within 48 hours of the kill. Hunters must report location of harvest, township, range, section when reporting. Okay. All right, so basically what that's saying is that instead of having to bring your bear in, if you harvested a bear and having a department employee inspect the bear and tag it in for you and remove the molar, the hunter would be responsible for removing that premolar and sending it in. The commission is also wanting comment on hunting districts where black bear hound hunting would be prohibited due to overlap with grizzly bear habitat. And I talked about that a little bit earlier. So moving to this map, the blue shaded areas are the areas defined in Montana as having grizzly bear, or as being inhabited by grizzly bears, excuse me. So you can see that Bear Management Unit 580 in Region 5 and that portion of 510 that we talked about east of Highway 310 are the portions that fall outside of that grizzly bear distribution. And that's why those 2 were proposed to be included in the hound hunting proposal. Okay, under migratory bird, there's a migratory bird proposal to establish the light goose conservation order for snow geese and Ross geese in the Central Flyway. Basically, this is a season for those birds that would be from March 1st to May 15th. So that may have limited opportunity, but there's a proposal to have a season for white geese. And the reason for this is more of a conservation effort to reduce white geese numbers. Currently, white geese are overpopulated, and it's having a negative effect on their summer and breeding grounds in the Arctic areas up north. So that's the idea there, is to try to eliminate or manage down some of the white geese numbers. We didn't have any regional changes proposed for moose, bighorn, sheep, mountain goat, or bison. We did have a call come into the director's office about mountain goat hunting district 519. That's a backcountry district. It's a very difficult district to access. There's only one mountain goat tag there. There are good numbers of mountain goats. We hadn't had one harvested for about 3 years in the district, not due to there not being goats there. There's plenty of goats there, but again, it's a very difficult district to access. One of the hunters that drew the tag one year was unable to hunt. Another hunter passed up several goats and just didn't harvest one. And then actually this year we did have a hunter harvest a really nice mountain goat in hunting district 519. So that one was questioned a little bit, but it does provide a really good mountain goat hunting opportunity. So we recommend to leave that there. But there is no proposed change for it. We just recommend to leave that district with one license. Okay.
And I'll just quick kick in on that one. So the question that came in is, if somebody is waiting for a lifetime hunt and nobody's harvested in the last 3 seasons, so these are people just looking at the numbers, nobody's harvested here and it's really limited. And in some areas, they've gotten calls going, you let me waste all my bonus points in a place where you can't even find the critters and I didn't harvest it. You know, you guys ruined, you know, my entire life because I waited for that one tag and there's nothing there. So that call came in saying, does this fit that perception and need? So kicked it back out to Sean. Sean went through the stuff, Matt went through the stuff, and the hunters that we called said, keep that one, don't let that one disappear. So it is limited. There is opportunity. So different than maybe some of those moose ones out west or something. So, okay, Matt.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So to reiterate, we've heard a lot of comments from you guys tonight. And again, they're the really important part of this is those comments that you made. In order for those to get heard by the commission and viewed by the commission, you have to, either document them on the format that I showed online, which is really the best, so that the commissioners can kind of sort through those and see those comments, especially when kind of some of those hot button topics pop up. They can get in there and kind of sort through them and get to those comments. But it also, overall, it organizes them really well. So use that online survey format. You can email them in. You can also handwrite them if you want, and mail them in to Helena as well, to the address that we showed you there. And that is the address that's provided in the hunting, fishing regulations, etc. So we just can't reiterate enough how important that your comments, the comments that you're making here just aren't, this isn't where those comments get recorded and sent to the commission. You guys have to go through one of these processes that I described to get them there. So I'm going to come back in now and we can take some more questions. And it's only 8:07 now, so we have a little more time. We can sure try to answer some more questions. And if you guys have some more specific stuff, maybe we can try to ferret that out for you a little bit as well. So I'll be right back in there.
Yep. And so Matt, hey.
Yep.
unshare your screen, but I'm gonna share with the folks here that if we need to, we'll pick that back up and we can go to, so if you saw the elk presentation or the deer presentation on our first two meetings, we had district by district, what the tables look like in that. So if somebody says, I really wanna dive into one of these, we'll kick Matt back to his office and pull that slide up, so. So, yep, okay. Actually, it's more fun looking at the slides than all of us, isn't it? So.
You guys are still here?
Mike, will you turn that microphone back on there on the?
There you go. Sorry about that, Bob.
Somebody want to throw something out here? You guys afraid to walk on that, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so the question is what's the consensus on grizzly bears? And so, Matt, you want to take that? I'm happy to take it, but if you want to take it, you can.
I don't know what.
Okay, I'll take it.
So nobody's got anything they want to commit to
Well,
or heard or say.
So I could stand here and go,
You know.
I love grizzly bears and I don't want you guys to take them in any way with a black bear bunch or hound. Or I could say, you know what? There's 10 times more bears than what you even think and we should get rid of them all. And it won't do me any good or Matt or you. So you know the whole ESA piece and all that. So to ask us what's the consensus, I'm telling you, there's not a consensus.
Well, what have you heard?
What have I heard is there's petitions, or not petitions, but both Wyoming and Montana governors have submitted to the Fish and Wildlife Service. We would like these delisted, which
So
then
what
means
do
that
we-
we
what
could
do we
look
have
at
to do
our
as-
other
as
options.
Constituents and hunters.
What's that?
What do we have to do as constituents of the state and people that want to hunt them?
Yep, so
So we got to get 10,000 people at the Fish and Game Department and saying, hey,
here's the deal.
okay.
So you're asking, do I need to get the Fish and Game Department to do that?
Takes is one liberal judge and that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to
so
go to him too.
that's legislative, that's managed by Congress, so we get to have management when those folks that everybody elects and puts into place tell us that here's your toolbox, what do you think we should do to manage that biologically? At this point, that's not there, so.
It's just a federal issue until it gets turned over to you, so.
Yeah.
Guys, look what happened with the wolf stuff. I mean, how many times did we go around and around?
Yep.
You need to hear rid of the Equal Access to Justice Act.
Right.
Yep.
And
So the other piece of this too is, you know, everybody's playing the dance, trying to figure out how to get to this. Well, let's not have too many lawsuits. Let's see if we can kind of mix in there. So people have watched what other places have tried to do. Well, we maybe shouldn't do that, or that looks like that might be working. So, you know, it's a fair question to ask. Lots of people are working on it. We don't really get to play in that. We're certainly sitting at those grizzly bear tables with those federal folks and having those discussions and sharing data and doing that. But, you know, the consensus question is kind of just out of bounds. So, yep.
Back to the elk kind of question, you know, in these areas that are over objective in that, how many calls do you get for game damage? And I mean, I don't see a lot of game damage hunts. And is that because they have shoulder seasons now, so it's just kind of open? I mean, I register every year for a game damage hunt, and I always have, and I've registered for areas based on areas that have had game damage hunts in the past. And in Region 5, I mean, I think the last one I saw was in 580, and that was several years ago, you know.
Yeah, there's one being proposed right now. So not in 580, but 540. So
yeah, Ashley can speak to game damage probably more than any of us can in this room. She deals with a lot of it, so.
So it's a couple things in Region 5. When we saw the shoulder seasons come into play, that did significantly decrease the need for game damage hunts, management hunts, anything like that, because landowners could just address the problem themselves with the tags that were on the landscape. The other issue is, in order to qualify for a game damage or management hunt, you have to be eligible, which includes allowing public hunting during the general season. in a way that doesn't significantly limit the ability to manage that population. That is usually where we don't have a lot of eligible landowners in Region 5. So that's why you don't see a lot of those damage hunts. But and we did see a lot that went away with the shoulder season. We just don't even get the calls really.
Yeah, so the shoulder seasons piece this year, we had people calling in going, hey, I didn't have one of those cow tags. Can I see there's some 005s left. Can I get one of those and then go run up there and shoot one of those? Or I have private, nope, that one only works in this area. So with these liberalized kind of bigger geographic area cow tags, that's gonna open up those late season hunts that, hey, the landowner actually is gonna let me on, and off we go and we don't have to do the damage hunt. So that shoulder stuff has potential. We're hoping to make sure that we don't get caught where this year where we have however many 1,000 of those tags sitting on the table, whatever that number is, and we can't use them and we want to, so.
One thing I read in the Gazette the other day was that under the existing elk management plan, if elk weren't available in an area that was huntable, like on some private property that was locked up, like let's say the Wilkes Brothers or whatever, that those elk weren't to be included in the objective numbers under the existing management plan. So if that's the case, why are they included in the population survey? Really, is that just because they're going on to different property, or?
Elk move.
No, I mean, I understand that they move, but.
They move, and it's, it just depends on which hunting district you speak to, how much they move, and so, if I fly in the winter when elk are bunched up on the winter range, that's where they are then. But even then, they might be largely on harboring landowners, but they still move off and they're available for harvest at different times of the year. And even throughout the season, if this guy allows access, they bump over here. They're very good experts at moving around to avoid hunting pressure. And so it sounds good on paper. In practice, when and how you draw those lines and which ones count and which ones don't, it's tough. It is really tough to say that those elk never are available. And then to stand there in front of a room and say, yep, they don't count and it's this many, that's a tough leg to stand on.
Yeah, I guess just my concern would be like 575, there's a couple of ranches that, the elk are there all the time. And I mean, that bumps up the elk number significantly. And if it goes to a general tag, I mean, there's gonna be areas where, you could sell it off in out of state, or it's gonna be $10,000 a bull, so they're stand to profit immensely from, something that's gonna wipe out the elk in the rest of the area, places that, don't have access to under that. I mean, they're gonna go by the wayside, there aren't gonna be elk.
Yeah, so those are the kind of comments we're hoping will come in during this process so that we can evaluate how many people think that way and how many people, like them. And so that's what we're trying to weigh out and see.
530 is a perfect example, a lot of those elk, when you got 6,000 head of elk standing on a couple of places up there that harbor elk. And then you have a traditional landowner that's borders them just to the south of them. And winter hits and all those elk go piling through Lake Mason Refuge, for example. And they end up right on this guy who's trying to make a living farming and ranching with his haystacks. And they pound the heck out of him. That's a good example why we count those elk. And it's like Ashley said, it looks good on paper. It's tough. Things move around. They cross boundaries. They cross highways. They don't care about what our hunting district maps look like. They go where they want food and move around for different times of the year.
So if we know that, why do we continue to take these large landowners and feed them a few bull tags for their friends?
So that's legislative. I'm gonna jump right in there. But I'm not gonna stop there. So that's legislative. We still want, so that's gonna be worked on for sure, because that's new legislation. And so like the bear season, that was legislated, but then we had to come up with, what do those dates look like? Where can we put this on the ground? So the 454 piece comes out, allows this to happen. Well, now we get to start playing within the bounds of the law that was put there. How can we make this better or do it? But one option that we don't have is to go, we're not doing that 454 program. So you can talk to us till the cows come home. This is where you need to talk to
But
legislators.
I believe the
governor.
utilization of those tags was decided by the commission.
Yep.
So it wasn't legislative.
No, it is a bill that's by law. The commission then had to put it into place. And then the department is supposed to kind of fill in the gaps. And this year, hey, we got caught because it was, hey, they're all coming in. There's not a lot of latitude in there to say yes or no. So that's where they go. So it is the process.
Just for my edification and maybe the folks here,
Yep.
then why did we give them to, let's call it the Northern Ranch? And why didn't we give those 16 bull tags to Terry Comble on the Southern Ranch and let him disperse them to the regular Joes?
So that's one where I visited with a couple ranches that, the one had no idea that I worked for FWP when I was standing there with somebody else that was one of his neighbors. And, don't like FWP, game damage stuff doesn't work. The cannons don't work. It's all I have is bulls, and there aren't enough permits out there. Everybody's going to the outfitters and they're not coming here. So I don't even have a group that I can pull with, and so they need to open this thing up so I can do it. And this is about as traditional as a landowner as you could get. And the other guy's looking at me like, when are you going to tell him that? So I tell him, and then we talk about the 454 program. Nope, that's just for those rich guys. That's just for, friends of the governor. It's like, no, we had these before in the region. This was the region that had them, and you would actually qualify. But the thing that we need to talk about is, so if all you have are bulls and they're creating all this damage, you're in an area that's over objective. Why aren't we as an agency capitalizing on that, going, so you're going to have to pick a few people that or not. We could let Ashley pick all of them if the landowner is willing to do that and come off of that list. You get to pick a few and we bring in the others. So rather than cows, maybe it's all bull tags. And, we can hit that list and get it done. And so that's being talked about as one of the options coming up. So it could be that these others, but so many people view it as this is just that special tag piece or that special opportunity, because the first row of those specifically for the ranch are not part of the quota or the tags. All the other ones are. So, whatever they do, they still have to allow some of that public. So,
and there's no provision within 454 to say these folks have locked up public land by landlocking it, gating off roads that maybe used to be accessed, but not publicly maintained. So it doesn't meet the law. And we can't say you can't have these.
nope. So this is where, under the trust doctrine, that you folks are talking to your legislators, to the commissioner, to the governor, and you can talk to us and we can share, so this is how this kind of works. So we're not deaf here, of course. Well, I am. I left them on. I've been tapping them a few times, but so, we'll hit the hallways tomorrow and talk, man, that was a good idea. That was kind of crazy and so then when the director comes and says, hey, we're working on this, how can we make this better? We can share some of those stories and some of those ideas. So it's not lost that way, but the direct effect of, you guys nail down exactly what you're thinking, because we're going to bastardize that a little bit when we go through, in our own lenses. So
it's the same premise as the damage hunts.
Yep.
If you're not allowing public hunting or you're not in block management or something along that lines, you don't get a damage hunt.
Yep. And that's where that's not where that's the same. So,
but so the people in this room need to be putting that comment down and talking to their legislatures, because if you're going to landlock your land up, then I guess you're going to need to buy hay.
Yep. So we're not done talking about 454s for sure. So, while we would rather that you go online for the season setting stuff, this card works for any of those comments, and then they can set them there and go, here's all the stuff we got on 454s and other stuff. We're not going to talk about it on February 4th, but we already have it in our pocket as we start thinking about what might that proposal look like and what might new legislation look like. I guarantee you 454s are going to be talked about in the halls and hell of this next session. So
not to be reactionary, but I would say as a landowner, you can't put the Wilks and most landowners in the same basket.
No, sir, I don't.
And when you do that, you alienate.
That's why I share the story of that other poor gentleman.
Be a less job of managing, allowing a manageable amount of hunting on their place.
Yep.
Knowing who's there, the hunters that I have on my place, I know they're the best caretakers I could ask for. It's just like block management. If you've signed in, you know that you're responsible. You see somebody else doing something.
Yeah.
So there are so many more landowners in that place, and trying to make it easier for them to not have to wait to a drawing to decide who's gonna be able to hunt their place is something that I think will make a lot of difference. I mean, it'll allow a lot of landowners to say, hey, I can do this. It's not, just my friends, it's just people that you've screened.
Yep.
And you can't do that if it's a permit thing. You just can't, because who knows who's gonna get a permit from year to year.
Yep, and that's where the risk for the commissioners, the last meeting where, if you get pulled in by one of these landowners that have not traditionally been letting people in and you're part of that drawing, please close those gates, pick up your trash, pick up other people, do what we keep telling people to do so we don't have to worry about the bad hunters and then have that. So if we want to start opening up where people get an opportunity to get in there. So one of the things that's being worked on is, we're being asked to send in information about how did those get selected, who got selected, what were the harvests, kind of how did the landowners that got those this year, how did they apply that and what worked and didn't work. So there's the ongoing evaluation of is it meeting the expectations of you, others, the landowners and that kind of thing. So yeah, that it's not going away. So,
And I didn't bring that up to offend anyone that was a landowner. Just, I guess my point is in one of your papers, you guys have, in one of the justification papers, there's a deal about where there's good elk numbers and there's good bull sizes and calf recruitment and all that you're worried about the purchase of land by people only for hunting purposes.
Because that keeps us in the same place that we're at. And
Right.
that's the
And-
concern. It's not that they're buying it. It's what do they do with it afterwards and how that's completely lost. So,
Correct. And that reason I bring that other thing up is because as we continue to issue tags to people on this law, if the people that are using it are the people with the large tracts of land and large money, and not the average guy or not this gentleman, all they're doing is losing money.
Thank you.
Hey, guys,
To
thank
their
you.
cows because the elk are eating all their grass. But they are not there in hunting season necessarily. It's, like he says, he manages his place, he keeps elk. But the place we talk about on the south of the end bar, that poor guy gets nothing but bulls until the shoulder season closes, and then he's got 6,000 cows sitting down there eating everything.
Yep. So that's where you see that play of those licenses that I said, here's the shotgun without the choke
Right.
on. Look into how can the season's longer, we can do this. So even if they just take a few more and some of those elk get bumped and that
Right.
we start nipping on the corners. So yep. I do want to jump back any season setting stuff before we keep on this. And if not, then we can keep on this track.
Well, I
So.
just want to ask something about season setting. You got the youth hunt on Thursday and Friday, okay, which is fine, but it's right in there where bow season's at. You got people running around in camouflage. So are they gonna go ahead and maybe switch it to where you have that week in between from archery to rifle? Because like I said, it can get pretty dangerous. A kid running around with the gun, even though he's got, some mentor,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in camouflage. You can't see me.
Yep.
I mean, I got deer within 4 feet of me.
Yep. And the thing with the youth season, and they aligned it with MEA weekend, and that's what the school districts have done. And the department really hasn't had control over where MEA weekend lands. It's generally right in there somewhere. And
So that's
sometimes-
teacher, for those of you that don't know, and probably all of you do, that's when the teachers convention is on and school's out. So.
Every fourth year, it's a week before the season.
Right.
It's a way more extreme.
Yeah.
I have kids, so I look it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when my boys were little, I was doing the same thing. I'm a little detached from it now, but
Like I said, I'm just nervous about,
yeah.
I'm in camouflage. Like I said, I got a buddy who was sitting 20 yards away and he goes, shit, I couldn't even really see you at all.
Yeah.
And you hear a bang and you're like, oh shit,
That's kind of where the problem lies. Again, that's not one of the proposals and that, that we're here talking about tonight. However.
But that does fit with season dates and that
And
there's a statewide list where you can jump right in there.
Yeah.
That first tile is kind of a housekeeping list, kind of the backbone of kind of where we can play and the rest starts being the meat. So.
All right.
So
yeah.
that comment card right there.
Okay, like I said, it makes you pretty nervous. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
Especially when you don't expect it because it didn't happen last year.
Exactly.
Have you, I just had a question about this unlimited, this 595.21. I know there was some discussion on the Zoom call the other day. I watched it today. So I just wanted to clarify, is that subject to the 10% non-resident cap or not?
So the any unlimited license
Yeah.
are not.
Yeah.
They're not,
specifically
so they're not subjected to the 10% cap. However, they are, for non-residents, they are subjected to the total of 17,000. And that is a combination of the big game combo and the elk combo. So the big
have
game
to draw
combo and the elk combo added together, when people, the
Yeah.
non-residents apply for those, once that number adds up to 17,000, that's the cap there. But unlimited licenses, unlimited permits are not subject to 10%.
So Ashley, you maybe know. So when non-residents come in, how many of them buy just a cow license, cow tag, period? They're not attached to a bull. So this is one of the things that has been pitched around.
They still have
People
to
worry
draw
about
the
it.
general combo.
Yeah, don't they have
Yeah.
to-
Buy the cow.
Yeah.
And that's where the 17,000 comes in,
Yeah.
is that those
Right.
combo licenses is what I'm talking about. They still have to.
They have to
draw
have a
it.
contribution.
Absolutely.
But the unlimited bee, how many would just come in? So I didn't draw that and I just want to come in and shoot a cow elk. Do we have a lot of subscription to that from out of state? And I'm asking her because she looks at the tables a lot, but
Yeah, I can tell you how many non-residents hunted with, for example, like a Region 5 B license, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
whether it was, I bet you it's not as big as what people worry, but I could be off. I haven't looked.
No,
at those
it's a couple hundred out of like, the 2,500 005s that we gave out, it's maybe 200.
So it's largely the non-res or the residents that are picking those up for hoping for the late season, or I get out there and happen to get lucky and cowherd sticks around. Okay.
I'd have to
Most
look.
of the, is it most of the regional, I don't remember what the number was, but areas that aren't gonna be open for general for archery, that are either sex, archery permit only, where you only have that one area if that goes through. Weren't those unlimited for archery, so that's not gonna be a 90-10 thing anymore either.
Yeah, so they are proposed for unlimited
Yeah, so
at
that's
the moment.
a lot of out-of-staters that's gonna come for that.
So you guys, this has been going on since mid-December, like I told you, right? And we have received a number of comments on those. Some of the comments we're receiving, and an abundant amount of comments, is just about what you're talking about, the 10%. And with that, we as a department, we're looking at those, the commission's wanting recommendations. Hey, guys, we're seeing these comments and things like that. What do you guys think? So one thought there was, instead of being unlimited for that archery permit, to go back to what we originally proposed, 1,500 licenses. Okay. So if you look at 900, the one that we're removing or proposing to remove, okay. Anytime I say it's something that we're doing, it's that we're proposing to do. Okay, guys, I don't want to get this confused that this is going to happen. Okay, this has to be adopted by commission. However, if you look at 900 licenses, there was 4,000. That was spread between Region 7, Region 5, and Region 4. With that, what was happening is when those big bulls got killed in Region 7, everybody's subscribing to that 900 permit. What do you think happened on the forest down there? What do you think happened on private land? What do you think happened to those landowners down in Region 7 that are falling under that 900 archery permit, their areas? Huge influx of people. So that was the idea, and that was our response to that overcrowding issue in 700, for example. And some of that stuff was occurring in Region 4 as well. Not so much in Region 5, just due to the fact that we don't have that much public land in Region 5 with accessible elk. So we took and we looked at that number of 4,000 and we took 1,500. Okay, so 1,500, that's quite a proportion of that 4,000. As we looked at harvest data, we came up with what, 800?
For the districts in Region 5 that are proposed to be under the 595-21 in 2020, which is our most recent harvest data that we've got, it was 1,093 archery hunters.
Okay, so 1,093. So if we have a similar trend and 1,093 or thereabouts apply for that 1,500, that's going to be undersubscribed by about 400 licenses roughly. So undersubscribed by 400 licenses, at least, you know, we're kind of containing some of the people that just wanted to hunt here. We're eliminating some of that, you know, overcrowding in other areas by kind of breaking that off over there. And some of the overcrowding is, yep, of those guys that she's talking about, the 1,093 that hunted here, yep, they went down and they hunted on the Custer too. So that's another part of the overcrowding issue. And that's why, you know, that was why the director and the department proposed that other proposal, that if this is what you drew, this is where you hunt, to kind of reduce some of that. So 1,500 is a pretty sizable proportion of that original 4,000 for what Region 5 was actually using. So
I guess my only concern would be that as an unlimited, in thinking about Region 7.
Yeah.
That Custer Forest too, is that, you know, like for Region 5, you're probably gonna have more outfitters and more out-of-staters that are gonna come in, more land's gonna be leased and not, you know, so that's kind of privatizing a public resource, and Custer is gonna get hammered. I mean, if they're unlimited, you know, everybody that's from out of state is gonna look and say, oh my God, I've been looking at hunting this district for a while, and you know, now we can go, so you're gonna have twice as many people down there.
So as I mentioned, we've been looking at comments through this comment period, you know, and kind of looking at, okay, this is up, this is kind of what we have so far. Region 7's doing the same thing. And not everything fits, guys. And that's the thing, is many times they try to put a blanket on something. And okay, well, let's just do this everywhere. Well, that doesn't always work. And so Region 7 is looking at that, and they're saying, hey, and we talk back and forth, hey, guys, this doesn't work for us. And, you know, there's some things that maybe do work in Region 5 and Region 4 that don't work in Region 7. So they're taking those comments that they're seeing. Now they're making a recommendation to the commission. Guys, here's kind of what we're seeing with the comments. Here's where the biology is. They're weighing and all that stuff. Those comments are going back up to the commission in a package that they can review, along with all of you guys' comments that you're gonna go type in. Remember, you have to do that. They're getting heard here, guys, but they're not getting recorded.
Yep. So one of the things on the kind of stepping back is, so we've heard things in different places. We're not through the whole comment period yet, but we're seeing things that are kind of matching up. So it's like, we have been given the latitude. They didn't tell us, well, you guys had your shot, you gave us the biology, you're done. It's okay. You guys help us look through this stuff. You know, make sure that the science isn't being lost in here. And then they're allowing us some latitude to talk and speak to some of those social issues as recommendations. That when Matt says going to the commission, our first step is up to the director's office.
Yep.
And does this make sense? And they're having those discussions. So there's already being changes proposed to what you guys saw tonight. And we spoke a little bit about to the 540, a little bit about this. So there are some things that are kind of already moving. We can't wait till the 11th hour and then go, all right, where are we at? And I mean, so it's in the sausage grinder, as Quentin often says, and it's moving through. So these are some of the discussions that we're having in process right now, that we'll see where they go. You know, they can throw it out, stay with what they got, change something entirely. But, you know, they're at least saying, we're encouraging you guys to interact and send that information up and let us know what you're thinking. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something else up there on that 900 tag. I know this gentleman here was talking about going up the brakes when his buddy and wouldn't be able to get there. Another thing I think people ought to think about too is with the dry weather we've been having and everything, we got a pretty bad fire hazard this side of the mountains over here. And if those people can't go somewhere else to hunt, you're going to increase the fire hazard over here in the eastern part of the state. And I don't know, I don't think sometimes people think about that, but a lot of times if I'm hunting on the west side, I'll run into other hunters. They say, well, I most usually hunt the breaks layer, but it's just too dry, so I don't get it.
Yep, and we've spun around that one a little bit. Plus, since the Robertson draw fire was in Region 5, it's like, now there was actually a big fire, and it completely looks different. And who knows how long is that going to be? And so, yep, those are kind of being pitched around in there. It'd be good to carry that conversation a bit more in those comments, but yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to you pick it and that's the one and only, so.
I just one final comment. I gotta get out of here pretty soon, but I understand, you're not recording this, not like they're gonna watch it. So we're basically talking to you guys.
Correct.
And we're also getting fed with the information of the proposals, which is good. My biggest concern is we as Montanans need to remember something. This is our state. These are our animals. They're not Wyoming residents' animals. They're not Canada's animals.
I bet you can
And we
say
need to
Washington.
we should be, our first concerns on our proposals should be biology. Should be looking at the numbers, how to cut them down, and then how do we manage this stuff and do it in the best way of our resident hunters. Everything else, don't get me wrong, I don't care about if favors come in, they bring a lot of money to the state. But we all know, all of us guys that are born and raised here, been hunting the same places for 50, 60 years. I know a lot of landowners, I hear all their complaints. But an unlimited, to take that unlimited, for example, unlimited cow tag and make it only good on private land is not thinking of the best interest of Montanans. Because there's already, every time you do something like that, it increases leased land, it increases public land being purchased. And yeah, it's only a cow tag, but come on, guys, an elk's an elk.
Yep.
Elk meets elk meat.
Yep.
And I don't want to see that, but at the very, very least, there shouldn't be a limited draw for anywhere and an unlimited for just private.
Yep.
Just make it all unlimited. And then each individual landowners deal with their land the way they choose. If it's leased up, it's leased up. If it's not, it's not. It's not separating it. Because with a lot of us people here in this room and everywhere else, and you know as many as I do and Matt, the first thing comes to mind is, oh, great. Now there's gonna be more places closed up.
Yep.
And you even said it on the Zoom, not you, but one of the guys said it on the Zoom call. Well, we're thinking of the landowners, we give them unlimited tag, they can have more of their family hunt, more of their close friends. Well, expand on that. We know what that means.
Yep.
Well, let's just get rid of this unlimited on just private. If you want to kill elk, the whole agenda here is to knock the elk numbers down.
Yep.
Because those poor landowners that want them killed, they want them killed.
Yep.
And they let you hunt. Up in the breaks where I've been hunting all my life, there's landowners up there that want 410 open general. They want elk killed. They said they never see an elk in their place again, they'll be the happiest ranchers up there. And that's a true story, guys.
Oh, no, I've been out
It's a
helping
true
to
story.
kill permits up.
But we keep managing for that small interest of the bow hunter, and nothing against bow hunters, I used to bow hunt too, or the special draws, or the outfitters, nothing against outfitters, they're business also. But that's the management, and it's the feeling that we have as Montanans is, we keep managing every year, step by step, and the steps are getting bigger, and it's mostly managing for those small groups. That, I know you don't do 410, but just for an example, anybody that doesn't hunt up there, very limited, very hard to draw a rifle bull tag. It took me 43 years to draw that bull tag. I've only had 3 cow tags in almost 50 years of applying.
Yep.
So it's a hard place to draw. Thank God I like the new cow health management up there where you get 2. And the reason they did that was so they didn't increase the hunter numbers in the field and devastate the deer herd, which it's still doing.
Yeah.
But that bull tag has only been raised from 50 to, I think one year it was maybe 200, back down to 150. And when you ask why, we know why. It's for the archery. They want these big bulls. Well, have anybody been up there and seen all the bulls? How many real big bulls do you see anymore?
Yeah.
Biologists know this. That number of big bulls and horn growth has came down, and why? Because of there's, I don't know what the bull to cow number is, guys, but it's huge.
Ashley might.
I mean, I see herds of 60 to 70 bulls in a herd. And out of the whole herd, there's maybe 2 or 3 that are 340, 360 bulls. The rest of them are broke off raghorns or weird points. It's inbreeding. It's all that interconnecting. It has to be part of that. And so we need to kill more bulls up there. But can't get anybody to do it.
Yep. So
It's no different with the unlimited cow tag on private. Just make it unlimited cow tags and that's not where we can hunt.
Yep, I think that's where you're seeing some of the move towards liberalization and some of this stuff and to try to test that water a little bit, but we'll see. So.
I know there's a lot of politics in it.
But you're well said. So, yep.
The question I have is, you made a comment earlier about the bulls moving into going into different areas, the 410,
Yep.
just like that. We've been there like him, but what we see is the no quality big bulls. You put out 900 tags and then another 100 on those cow tags. And I think the anticipation is that those
Thanks,
bulls
folks.
are gonna move. Is that the plan is to, if the cows aren't there, the bulls are gonna go follow the cows? Is that the concept that they're trying
I
to do?
don't know with 410, that's not. in
Oh,
our-
yeah, I mean, in general, anything, when you put a limit on something like that, you get the bulls that were there, we remember the days of that 340, 350 lots. Now you don't see that, but you wanna shoot 900 cows in that area, if you do kill that many or a bunch of cows, is the concept that the bulls are actually gonna go to 700, go to 417, 411? Is that the objective? Is to get
Probably
them-
more that the, and I'm just guessing as a fish biologist that.
She said something
Get
about-
rid of all the hens, they'll put them on train.
Yep. The cows, you also got rid of your production and your calves and your that. The bulls, they're just wandering around until they die, whether they get shot or they die of old age, but you know, all you need is a handful of bulls to make calves. And so it's probably less about, you know, are we trying to manage the location of the bulls by reducing cows? It's that if you really want to reduce elk numbers, you need to get those cows that are making calves and replacing that or more from what just got harvested during hunting season. So I don't know, was I too far off as a fish biologist for that one? Okay.
To piggyback off Mo's comment, why does Fish and Game not, why don't we get into the
Good night, thanks.
the profit
Whatever
of
you want.
these outfitters and guides? If these elk are truly the public's, the residents of Montana, why are we not making the outfitters give us a list of their clients and saying, you're going to replace that elk? If you're not going to allow the public to get in and manage their own elk, and you're going to sell them, some of that selling price should come back to the residents of Montana. Pay the poor guy that lost his haystack, because Embar will keep 7,000 elk, and after the season, they'll throw them all off. And poor Mr. Lewis, who put up hay for his cows, gets ate out of house and home.
Yep.
Because Embar doesn't want them. Use that money to cut our relationships with the ranchers that do live.
Good night, thanks.
Night, thank you.
So I'm guessing that's, I don't know if we have a good, I mean, it's not one that we're typically kicking around at our level, so I'm,
Wouldn't be something that we'd have in our.
Yeah.
That'd have to be a legislative.
yeah, so that's the comment card wheelhouse. You know, those are our coffee table pieces that we kick around, so when proposals come up, it's like, how does that work and where does that look? But that really is legislative commission, director's office, governor stuff, so appreciate the discussion, though, it helps us too.
Yeah, I would, got a couple of things. How do I get on your?
Speak up, Brett.
How do I get on your good guy list?
I gotta turn this up, I missed the which list?
Pick out the folks that you want to have on there, and I don't have $1,000 to spend, but how do I get on your good guy list?
So-
Number two.
So wait a minute, who do you let in your house? Do you let people you don't know, or do you let people that you
Sometimes.
know that
There
understand
was
things?
there was a plumber in my house this week that
Well-
I did not know.
And it's okay for you to say defer and send it to me, I'm happy to take it for you.
The other part of that is, and this may be for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks folks. Several years ago, I went online and took a test. Landowner, hunter relations test.
Stewardship, right?
What's that?
Was it the stewardship one?
Yes.
Or- Yep.
I have yet to be asked for that, okay? But I don't hunt in a lot of folk like yourself. I don't go searching all over the state for a place to hunt. I've been hunting in one place for 32, 33 years. But I've never been asked for it. I never asked to see it. When I teach hunter ed, when I teach bow hunter ed, I refer to that test. And then there's a couple of questions in there that I like to quiz the kids on and the parents specifically. A couple of the gate closers ones, and it has to do with the cows that are loose and whatever. So why don't we use those a little bit more instead of the $1,000 that I have to pay to get? the
Yeah, so I'm
cow?
gonna pull that off you and have him start talking to me. That's all. So, rather than letting you pick on a landowner that was willing to say, hey, think about it here. I'm gonna pull that back, and not that I don't think that you can take that, but, you know, there's a lot of hunters that fit into the same group that you're identifying with, a lot of hunters that are out there, and it's way more challenging now than it was 30, 40 years ago to go knock on the door. No doubt about it. And a lot of times you can't get to the landowner. You're just talking to the ranch manager that has been told gates closed. They don't even have the discretion. You know, and so some of the things that they're trying to pitch here are how can we start to rebuild some of those relationships so that it makes it easier for the folks to go knock on that door and hope for something different than what most of us have been experiencing lately. We did get quite a few phone calls this fall going, hey, I was knocking on the doors and I actually got in. I need a cow tag, which is where we ran into that problem. We don't have any more. And in that district, you can't use your general tag, which Matt and I are going, oh, you know, we want them to get in there. So we're trying to fix that piece. They're trying to work on that. That is a problem that is recognized across the board. And some of it still just means going out there and banging on the door and hoping for a different answer on some of that. And, you know, doing that goodwill piece. There isn't really you know, that's where we say they're not all the Wilks. They're not all, you know, identifies that you gotta find.
Maybe laminate my certificate
Maybe,
that I got.
yep. You know, and then there's the next guy that didn't take the test, but still has all the same ethics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
There's many of them out there.
Yep, tons of a variation. in
There are
that.
some of the other side that, I helped the landowner where I hunt. Anything that I saw sideways, I went and talked to them.
Yep.
Give them information so that they could make corrections. Caught a couple of guys that shot 2 monster bulls on a neighboring property, but I knew where those guys were camped.
Yep.
The manager come to me and says, are those guys still here? I don't know, but I'll go find out. I went up there and found out the truck that was there for those guys was gone, but there was a local guy there that was guiding them. Okay. When I come back and told him that, he said, watch that herd that's coming across today. I shot a cow out of that herd that day because of the information that I shared with a place that I couldn't get on.
And, or what you're talking about, it all boils down to relationships. And there's opportunities for relationships. And I mean, most of the guys in this, most of the guys in this room remember when most landowners in Montana were traditional landowners, they were in agriculture. And do you remember how much easier it was to get access to go hunting then?
That you have to ask, Kappa.
Yeah, I was in Northeast Montana. I had landowners tell me, Matt, why are you calling me to ask me to go hunting? Go.
Yeah.
I always called them because that's the way I was raised. But that has changed, guys. Our landowners, many of them are traditional landowners. Many of them are not Montana folks. But the ones that are still traditional landowners that like hunters and like people to come out, some of those guys are getting fed up too. They're getting tired of seeing toilet paper on this, you know. And I don't mean this to be a preaching session. I think we all know what the issues are. And to speak to his point, it's a relationship issue. And for many people across the state to gain access, you have to establish the relationships. And there's some landowners you're not going to be able to, and there's some that are.
Yeah.
And many that you can't have a lot of elk.
Yeah, I'll pitch my 2 cents in. So we grew up, we had a farm. So we could get a gratis license. We didn't have to worry about elk where I was at. It was all deer. You could get a gratis license. So now to kind of flip that, so people have a land, they're here, they want to elk hunt. They cannot draw one of those super limited things, and they're holding it. But now we're outfitting, we're at least paying for the place, and we're hoping to get one of those tags. They don't draw. That frustration elevation raises. So why would I let you on if I can't even hunt my place, even though I don't live here? So that's that kind of that flip side of that conversation. And then as far as relationship building, you know, I've gone where I'm just not asking much anymore. But this year we finished up a big hike, and one of the ranchers came by and said, hey, you guys seen anything? And you could see he was not sure he really wanted to engage, but you know, we're dog tired sitting by the road eating lunch. And so we're talking, and he's like, yeah, I cannot find 4 of my cows. We're like, hey, well, we'll be looking for those cows. So, we didn't see him that day. Then we saw some more that we were like, oh, maybe those are it. And we went, no, he found them, but he was glad that we came back in. But I guarantee you, the brother-in-law and myself and the other guy were like, so we're helping. Maybe we're going to get that. Well, hey, guys. So maybe next year when he sees us up in the same area, it's like, oh, you guys are back. How's it going? Hey, there's a bunch right down over here if you guys want to go hit them. So hope, maybe. So.
Anyway, thank you.
Yep, no, thank you. Guy right behind you, his hand up. Oh, okay, sorry. Yep.
I think keeping a
Thanks, guys.
relationship with the landowners and hunters is very important. But I don't think that you're going to achieve anything by handing them a stack full of licenses, either outfitters or the landowners, and saying, here you go. But the landowners that do allow this, I have a friend that has a bunch of land. He has it open block management, a portion of it. He can't draw a tag. He'd love to kill a bull on his place.
Yep.
I don't see anything wrong with allowing 1 or 2 tags to go to those landowners for their family. Especially since he's willing to open it up for block management. But to hand them a stack of tags and say, knock yourself out, I will promise you, now maybe in this guy's case and some others, but overall, you're gonna lose a lot of your access, because why would anybody settle for a couple $1,000s of block management when they could quadruple it on leasing it out? I mean, I would do that, So I think keeping that relationship, and I have heard a lot of landowners complain that they can't get that tag.
Yep.
But it needs to be very well monitored, and but just to open it up and saying, here you go, knock yourself out. I'm telling you, I truly believe, I listened to what this gentleman said, and I think overall, I think it's gonna hurt us. I really think it's gonna hurt. We had a couple young kids in here tonight, and I don't think they're gonna find a place to hunt when they get to be 30 years old. I mean, it's hard right now.
Yep, we're hoping
I
that
honestly
turns around, so.
Don't
All you gotta
think
do is
very
look
many
at
people are gonna
Colorado.
share his point of view.
Have
on
you ever
it.
looked at Colorado's
Yeah.
management? What happened when they started giving away their vouchers?
Hi, guys, thanks.
Close the land, vouching fees went way up. You want one of my vouchers? It's $8,000.
Yeah, I know.
We don't wanna get there in Montana, okay, guys?
So, can I say, let me.
Yep, you sure can.
The other thing is, I'm a part-time landowner, but I'm involved in this, and I can't tell you how hard it is. The opposite of the Wilkes, there's state land that is accessible, that I have trouble keeping people off my land that's hard for me to get at, off the state land. So this is a job, and the reason a lot of landowners, in my opinion, will go with a lease or an outfitter, they don't have the time. They don't have the time to, they're up at 6 o'clock and somebody knocks on their door and, coming in for coffee and,
Do you
I've done
yourself?
that my whole life, and I know you always feel uncomfortable, so.
But you don't get the harvest.
Huh?
You don't get a harvest with outfitters. You don't get the numbers.
Well,
Outfitters only have limited time.
You're the landowner, you decide what you decide, I
Do
decide what I want.
you hunt yourself?
Yeah,
So do you have a hard time drawing a tag?
this is 500, so I've gotten one bull tag, didn't get a bull, my place is not real big. Talking about elk moving, I mean, they're there or they're not.
Right.
The hunters I have in my place, they know that, they got lucky this year, but they're gone, they don't mind going 10 miles, so I'm not getting any, I'm getting some of it, but the point is, there's so much of this land that's easy to hunt, and you've gotta figure out a way to manage it so that, just like you manage your cattle, you gotta take some, you don't want chronic wasting, but you can't let everybody hunt because it's just too easy to hunt, so.
If I understand that right, can't the landowner kind of dictate on block management on?
Yeah.
Like, they don't want more than 2 people at a time, or?
Yep.
I mean, they still have control over, don't they?
Block management is certainly reason, that's what approached it, but I also think that what you said about, landowners, most of them aren't millionaires and need income, and they're managing that place. They're managing the fences, they're managing everything. They deserve to have some reimbursement for it. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying, I know they gotta fix fences and stuff, and a couple of them that I know personally, they would really like to shoot an elk on your place, but they can't draw the tag. And if they're willing to meet us halfway, I don't have any problem with them. The problem I have is, here you go, knock yourself out. I just,
Yep, so the
I
Here
just
You Go,
don't-
Knock Yourself Out did come with 3 more tags this last round that came off the deal. It used to be that, you know, we were asking for more, and the couple that actually had pulled together, it was 16 more. So that one definitely is gonna be at the legislature. Stay engaged on that. Keep talking. It's gonna be there, and they're gonna need to hear that, because I guarantee you that one's gonna hit the floor because of the frustration that's there.
right.
And they are asking for us, who got those tags? How did they get selected? Where did it go and how did it work? Already just off of this first round where it started to kind of gain some traction. And so they're looking for lessons learned in there to inform some of those discussions
I
already
mean, the
too.
bottom line is, it doesn't matter what they settle on, who does it or everything, somebody's gonna be unhappy. I mean,
Yep.
there's just no
That means we
way-
did the right thing then, if
there's
everybody's.
no
unhappy.
way.
I know that's- Yeah, no, I
But
think
the
you're
bottom line
right on.
is what everybody needs to realize, and it's been brought up 2 or 3 times, this game belongs to all of us.
Yep, so what we're hearing folks say is there has to be some type of incentivization, but we don't want to get so far that it's privatization. And how can we get more people on there and do that? And so that is the balance I think that everybody's kind of playing with.
It's a
But
tough one
you
too.
go a little bit and it's a long ways. You don't go far enough. You didn't do what you needed to do. So that's one where, you know, it's using this,
Yeah, in
being your
fact, I wanna
voice.
get a couple, I may
Yep.
mail in, I don't know, I'm not very good on that game.
Yep.
And I'd sure like to hear.
Can I get a
what
couple,
Laurel-
because you have to have one for each.
No, you
Because
can, you can do
you can
whatever.
do the pheasants and
Oh,
everything
yep,
on
the
it.
whole bit, yep.
I'd like to hear what my senator.
Thank you, sir.
Laurel- What does my senator from Laurel have to say about?
Who
the
else?
legislation?
I'm glad you
I think
came.
you were at-
That's it.
Thanks.
Brad is very involved in
The CA, the
it.
regional.
Our state senator, he can add a lot of insight.
So this round, you know, you've been here long enough, you've seen a lot of space changes.
Yeah.
So we did not engage, we had a whole bunch of them that came up in October. Okay. And we said, we're gonna hold it where we're at, and take it and kind of go through. So I haven't had a chance, we had, you know, Doug was here tonight, we had. I do have a couple that are questioning whether they have any jobs. So if we get an open seat, then you'll see it advertised. So, me and each.
It's not a game away.
And say, hey, I'm
It's
gonna.
a legislative deal. And once you start making it agriculture.
Number one thing is. Will be advertising every-
Are we done, Mike?
Michael Laird.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I was here back in summer when they did it.
Maybe cut down on some.
Trying to get them kind of engaged. And I know I got invited 3 years ago.
You know, and there's another.
Years ago, I didn't hear anything last
What
night.
Okay.
Maybe a plan
Yep. No, I think we'll probably have some.
And I tried.
I'm still short my own.
Right.
Hoping that we have enough applicants this last round. Park manager, regional recreation.
No.
I've kind of just been holding off.
Yeah, I've heard it's really short staff right now. So pretty much everybody runs the short staff right now.
Yep. It's good.
Okay, cool.
All right, thanks, folks, and Bob, thanks for those biologists on the thing, thanks. Yep, good seeing you. Yep, take care.